Hey everyone, it's the Hungry Tourist, and today I have a very fun video. This video is about the things that you could find frustrating or shocking about China as a tourist. Okay, and before I get into it, here's the time to like and subscribe if you already haven't. This video is supposed to be informative and educational, but also entertaining. If you have your own opinion, I would love to hear them in the comment section. But let's try to keep things nice, light, and entertaining. You're going to need to be prepared for crowds, especially if you're going to be traveling within the big cities. We're talking about cities with millions and millions of people in them. Shanghai, Beijing, Zhengzhou, Shenzhen, Beijing, Wuhan, Guangzhou. And if you're coming from the States, you may think, okay, I've been to Chicago, I've been to New York, I know how to deal with big cities, but these are on a different scale. China is a huge country. It's densely populated. Right now, there's a population exceeding 1.4 billion. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of buildings. That's a lot of motorbikes. China's been closed for some time, so we have lots of travelers coming in. And you're gonna find people coming from all parts of the world. You're gonna have Chinese tourists traveling within their country. And if you're planning to go to popular tourist spots like Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace, there's going to be huge lines of people. When we were traveling within Xi'an and we went to see the terracotta warriors, there were so many people at the mausoleum. Yeah, there are so many people. Yeah, lots of students. It's like an arena. Holy cow! We followed instruction and woke up very early and got there at a decent hour. And even then, there were just so many people there. You had to wait your turn in line to be able to see the warriors. There were lots of schools. There were lots of groups of tourists, including myself. You need to get used to congestion on the roads and the sidewalks, especially busy intersection. There's going to be bikes. There's going to be cars, scooters, all different types of motorists. And the pedestrian doesn't always have the right of way, so you need to be very aware of your surroundings and look out for cars. So how was I affected by the crowds? I would say in the moment, I'm pretty good with crowds, but when I got home, I did feel extra tired. I did feel exhausted and kind of wanted to retreat back to myself. It was really great that we were able to go back to a nice, comfortable hotel. If you're gonna be out traveling 8 to 12 hours in the big cities around all the people, it is going to take a toll on you. If you're the type of person who doesn't do well in crowds, I would suggest doing 1 or 2 big activities a day. And if you're really not a fan of crowds, I would say probably skip the big cities. Maybe visit 2 cities that you really want to see, that really on your list, and then the rest of the time stay in the more rural areas, in the villages. Internet. You're going to need to be prepared for the internet blocks. China does not use Google, so you can't be checking your Gmail, you can't use Google Docs, you can't do Google Maps. Not being able to use Google Maps was probably the most difficult for me because I rely so heavily on Google Maps when I'm traveling to get me certain places. We were able to find like a Chinese version of Google Maps, but that was only in Chinese. So I had to rely heavily on my husband to navigate when we were in China. This was an issue for me not to have Google Maps. And if you're a big social media person, if you need to have your Facebook, your Instagram, YouTube, you take all this cool footage from the day, yeah, this could be a problem. Some websites that are blocked are Google, YouTube, Facebook, Wikipedia, Reddit, Netflix, Zoom, Blogspot, Bing, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitch. Guys, all of those things are blocked in China. So you either need to have a VPN and a VPN app that you can change and you can get new VPNs like every day. I did use that. It worked sometimes, but don't count on having fast internet if you're using a VPN. Even when I had a working VPN, social media was usually pretty slow to load. I would say I probably stopped using Instagram. And at certain points, I kind of just gave up using a VPN. Okay, we need to talk about digital wallet and transactions. So as much as I like using the digital wallet, there are some downsides. In order to use a WeChat wallet, you're going to need a Chinese bank account and you're going to need a Chinese telephone number. Foreign tourists without a Chinese bank account used to be able to use WeChat Pay, but that feature is no longer available. So if you have a trip to China coming up, I would really try to figure out some type of plan that you're going to pay with your WeChat because it's used so often. There are alternatives, but some places, the only option you're going to have is WeChat. So if you have a relative or if you have a close friend, you could use their account and then reimburse them afterward. When I was visiting China, I'm lucky enough that I have family there that we were able to use my relative's WeChat account to make transactions for small payments. You definitely want to download Alipay. If you're able to have a WeChat, download the WeChat wallet. Having a WeChat also goes into having reservations. When we were there, we needed to make reservations for Tiananmen Square, the Summer Palace, and the Forbidden City. To see those popular tourist sites in Beijing, you will need to pay for your ticket over WeChat. For your reservation, you will be given a date and a time, and you cannot show up late for your appointment. If I didn't know of someone who had a Chinese bank account and a Chinese telephone number, I don't know how I would have made these reservations. As a foreign tourist, you can still use cash, you can use Alipay, and you can use your card in some areas. Most likely all your bookings for your train tickets and your hotels will be booked in advance. Of course, you can pay for that with your credit card. And there are some restaurants that you're able to pay with your card, especially Western restaurants. Of course, we didn't go to any of those places because we were in China and I wanted to eat Chinese food. But you are able to use your credit card in some of those establishments. I think even though they have the option for cash and Alipay, the preferred option for most places is WeChat. So you're definitely going to want to still have your cash. You're going to have your credit cards that you can use in some places, mostly Western establishments, hotels, and restaurants. Most food establishments prefer us to pay with WeChat. We also went to some upscale Chinese restaurants that would take cards. Even some of the restaurants that said that you could pay with cash ended up not being able to accept cash because they told us that they did not have the proper amount of change that they could give us. Smoking. All right, I'm just gonna be honest, the smoking got on my nerves. I found that smoking was very common in China, no matter really where we went, malls, convenience stores, train stations, streets, restaurants, outside, inside, public parks, public spaces, big tourist spot, lines. I would say it was an annoyance that kind of developed over time. I knew that smoking was still very popular in China, so I was kind of expecting it. I've also been in lots of environments where I've kind of had to be around smoke, even though I don't smoke. So I was kind of somewhat accepting of it at first, and by the end of the trip, I found that it was really annoying me. It also has something to do with the population because it's not just one person smoking, it's lots of people smoking and it just kind of lingers in the air. And that all goes along with traveling. You're hot, there's lots of people around, you're trying to figure out things that you haven't had to figure out before. You don't speak the language. So that all onto maybe people smoking the whole time, it kind of adds into that frustration, that stressful feeling. And even in some of the smoke-free establishments, you could still smell the smoke in the walls. We stayed in some pretty nice hotels that you could still smell the smoke in the walls. We had one experience where we actually had to change rooms because it smelled so potent, it smelled so strong. And when they changed our room, I actually still smelled it. But at that point, I wasn't going to continue asking for us to change our rooms because most likely that's probably how most of the building smelled. And maybe this is a generational thing. Maybe smoking rates are decreasing, declining. I'm not sure. But I do know that most of the hotels that we went to were smoke-free. I think some of the college campuses were smoke-free. I don't think there was much or any smoking inside restaurants. You can tell me. But yeah, let me know what you think. Again, it could be something that's slowly declining. When I was growing up in the US, smoking was pretty acceptable and it really changed a lot within like 10 years. There were lots of smoking bans on campuses and restaurants and all kinds of places. In the US, smoking is not kosher anymore. There are some places where you can still get away with it, but in the daytime, in public places, it's very very much seen as rude, and people might even say something to you. I think I probably worked at one of the last smoking friendly restaurants in the US when I was in high school. And when I would ask people if they wanted to sit in the smoking section, people looked at me like I said something wild. But I really want to hear y'all's opinion about the smoking. So let me know what you think. Is it a thing of the past? Is it going out of fashion? Is it never going to change? Am I annoying for even mentioning it? Okay, bullet train, bullet train, bullet train. In my previous video, I had so many good things to say about the bullet train. But there is one very limiting factor of the bullet train: the booking experience. In order to book a ticket for the bullet train, they may only allow you 15 days beforehand to book the ticket. These tickets could fill up fast and you don't have another option. That may seem kind of small, but when you have a limited amount of time in certain places, this can get very difficult. And you find yourself adjusting your schedule a lot. And I'm not sure how that works when you miss your train. Luckily, we never did miss our train. For the most part, we had a very good experience on the bullet trains. How do I talk about this one without sounding like a complete egomaniac? We are talking about cultural shock here though, so I do want to bring up the fact that when you're traveling abroad, there might be people who aren't used to seeing other people who look like you. Because of that, they might have a curiosity about you. If you're a foreigner, depending on where you're going, people may stare at you. And people may not only stare at you, but they may point at you. They may take pictures of you. They may say really nice things. They may say very hurtful things. They may go out of their way to even ask you for a picture. The point is, in some regards, you may become the center of attention, and that attention isn't always wanted. Now, I've met people who have really liked this. I've met people who really hated this. I think I lie somewhere in the middle where I don't necessarily like it, but it doesn't bother me to an extent. I try to make people happy. If someone stops me and asks me if they can take a picture with me, I will. I bring these things up because it is something that you should be prepared for when you're traveling, especially for the first time. You may be a very shy person. You may not like standing out. Depending on where you are, that may be kind of difficult. And you may feel very uncomfortable. I would say the only times that it really bothers me is when I've been traveling for a long day and I'm really tired and I'm really sweaty and I kind of just want to retreat into myself. When I catch people staring at me, in those moments, I kind of just want to like crawl up into a ball and hide. The best way to handle this is to be polite. Most people are polite. Most people are courteous. If they are looking at you, they're really just curious. And you have to remember that you are a visitor in their country, and the best thing to do is be a good representation of yourself and where you're coming from. If people ask to take pictures of you or take pictures with them, that's completely up to you how you feel comfortable handling that. I usually do take a quick picture with someone and then just say goodbye. And if there's one type of person who usually stares the most, I would say it's probably people from the very older generation. Sometimes I feel like they just like don't care. With that said, if you're in a bigger city, a more international metropolitan area, people probably won't even care what you're doing. You can probably just walk on by. But I understand where the curiosity comes from. And especially if you're traveling in places or rural parts of the country where maybe people haven't seen Westerners too much, yeah, there's going to be more curious stares. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on frustrating things you might encounter in China as a tourist. Please follow along and stay tuned for new videos where I explore more of China, the ancient sites, massive cities, and more of Asia. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!